The Celestial Table was the finest restaurant on Harmony Point Station. Crystal chandeliers floated overhead, held in place by gentle anti-gravity fields. Tables were spaced far apart to accommodate species of all sizes, from the tiny Pixith who needed platforms to reach their plates, to the massive dragons who required reinforced seating. Serathix of the Ember Clan swept through the entrance with her usual grace. Her scales shimmered like polished rubies in the soft lighting. Behind her, trying to match her dignified pace, walked her son Corvin. The young dragon kept his wings folded tight against his back, his posture perfect, just as he had been taught. "Remember, Corvin," Serathix said quietly as they were led to their table. "We are representing our clan tonight. Dignity at all times." "Yes, mother," Corvin replied, his voice barely above a whisper. They settled into their seats, specially designed chairs that could support a dragon's weight and tail. Serathix ordered for them both in flawless galactic standard. This dinner was meant to be a reward. Corvin had achieved top marks in his diplomatic studies, continuing the family tradition of excellence. But as Serathix looked at her son across the table, she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his claws gripped the edge of his seat. He looked more nervous than happy. Before she could comment, a burst of laughter drew her attention. 3 tables away sat a human man with 2 small human children. Serathix recognized the species immediately. Humans were common on the station, working as traders, engineers, and settlers. They were known for being adaptable and hardworking, though most dragons considered them too emotional and somewhat fragile. The human father looked tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his uniform was wrinkled as though he had come straight from work. He balanced a datapad on one knee while helping the smaller child, a girl with pigtails color, on a digital drawing pad. The older girl sat beside him, practicing words from what looked like a language lesson. "Ba-re-e-tha," the older girl said slowly. "Almost," the father encouraged. "It's ba-re-e-tha. The first syllable is softer." Serathix found herself watching them. She told herself it was simple curiosity, nothing more. Dragons were trained observers, after all. It was perfectly natural to study other species. The small girl with pigtails reached for her cup, a tall glass filled with bright blue kala juice. Her hand knocked it over. The glass tipped, and blue liquid spilled across the table, dripping onto the floor. Serathix expected what would happen next. In dragon culture, such clumsiness would bring immediate correction. The child would be reminded of the shame they brought to their family, taught to be more careful, more controlled. But the human father did something different. He set down his datapad immediately. "Oops. That's okay, Sophie," he said with a gentle smile. "Accidents happen to everyone. Let's clean it up together." He signaled to a passing Zentari waiter. But his expression held no anger or embarrassment. "I'm so sorry about the mess. Could we get some cloths?" The waiter, a tall being with silver skin and multiple arms, actually smiled back. "Of course, sir. No trouble at all." The father, Marcus, Serathix heard the older girl call him, pulled napkins from the dispenser and handed some to Sophie. Together, they dabbed at the spill, and Marcus made exaggerated cleaning motions that had both girls giggling. "Look, I'm a cleaning robot. Beep boop beep," he said, moving his arms stiffly. Sophie laughed so hard she snorted, which made her laugh even harder. Serathix felt something strange in her chest, a warmth, an unfamiliar flutter. She had never seen a parent respond to a mistake with such lightness, such absence of shame. "Mother?" Corvin's voice broke her concentration. "Why are you watching the humans?" Serathix realized she had been staring. "I am simply observing," she said, turning back to her son. "It is good practice for diplomatic work." But moments later, her attention drifted back. The older girl, Lily, she heard, was struggling with her language homework. Her small face crumpled, and tears began rolling down her cheeks. "I can't do it," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll never learn Galactic Standard. I'm too stupid." Serathix expected the father to correct this emotional outburst. Tears in public were undignified. The child needed to learn control. Instead, Marcus set everything aside. He slid off his chair and knelt beside his daughter, getting down to her eye level. His own tiredness seemed to disappear as he focused completely on her. "Hey, hey," he said softly, wiping her tears with his thumb. "You're not stupid. Not even a little bit. Learning a new language is hard. Do you know how long it took me to learn Zentari? 3 years, and I still mess up the clicking sounds." "Really?" Lily sniffled. "Really? And you've only been studying for 3 months. You're doing amazing." He pulled her into a hug. "How about we try it together? I'll say it first, then you copy me. No pressure, just practice. Okay?" Lily nodded against his shoulder. They practiced together. And Sarathix watched as the girl's tears transformed into concentration, then into a small smile of pride when she finally got the pronunciation right. "There you go," Marcus said, his whole face lighting up. "See? You're brilliant." "See?" Sarathix felt something shift inside her. This human, this supposedly emotional and weak creature, possessed something she was beginning to recognize as true strength. Not the strength of power or position, but the strength of patience, of kindness, of meeting his children exactly where they were. She glanced at Corvin, who sat rigidly across from her, barely touching his food, the weight of 17 generations of expectations pressing on his young shoulders. What would happen, she wondered, if she showed him this kind of gentleness? At that moment, Marcus looked up. Their eyes met across the restaurant. Sarathix expected him to look away quickly, most species did, when a dragon noticed them. Dragons were powerful, ancient, and held high positions throughout the galaxy. They commanded respect, and often fear. But Marcus didn't look away. Instead, he smiled a tired but genuine smile and gave her a small nod. One parent to another. No fear in his eyes. No intimidation. Just a simple acknowledgement of shared experience. Something unprecedented happened in that moment. Sarathix made a decision that went against every rule of dragon protocol she had ever learned. She stood up. "Mother?" Corvin's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done long ago," she said quietly. She walked across the restaurant, her tail sweeping gracefully behind her. Other diners turned to watch. Dragons did not approach other species casually. This simply was not done. Marcus looked up as her shadow fell across their table. Sophie gasped, eyes wide. Lily grabbed her father's arm. Sarathix felt a moment of doubt. Perhaps this was foolish. Perhaps she was about to embarrass herself and her clan. But then she looked at Marcus's patient eyes, at his 2 daughters who had been treated with such gentleness, and she knew this was right. "Forgive the intrusion," Sarathix said, her translator crystal humming softly at her throat. "I am Sarathix of the Ember Clan." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I wanted to tell you that you are doing an exceptional job with your daughters." Marcus blinked in surprise. His eyebrows rose. Then his entire face brightened with a warmth that made him look 10 years younger. "That means a lot," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Especially today. I'm Marcus. Marcus Chen." He gestured to his daughters. "This is Lily and Sophie." There was a moment of silence. Sarathix knew she should return to her table now. She had said her piece. Protocol had already been stretched far enough, but Marcus looked at her with such openness, such genuine warmth, that she found herself unable to leave. "Would you and your son like to join us?" Marcus asked, glancing at the empty chairs at their table. Behind her, Sarathix heard Corvin make a small sound of shock. Every instinct, every lesson, every rule told her to decline politely and return to her own table. Instead, Sarathix found herself saying, "We would be honored." Corvin could not believe what was happening. His mother, the distinguished Sarathix of the Ember Clan, diplomat to 3 star systems, was sitting at a table with humans, not just any humans, a casual family having dinner. This was not proper. This was not the dragon way. He kept his wings pressed tight against his back as he took the seat next to his mother. The chair felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. "You're huge," the small human girl Sophie shouted, her eyes as wide as moons. "Sophie, inside voice please," Marcus said gently, but he was smiling. Sorry, Daddy. But he is huge, Sophie whispered. Though her whisper was almost as loud as her shout, Corvin did not know what to say. Dragons did not usually interact with children from other species, especially not human children who stared at him like he was some kind of entertainment. This is my son, Corvin, Sarathix said, placing one clawed hand gently on his shoulder. Corvin, please greet our new friends. It is. Nice to meet you, Corvin managed, his voice stiff and formal. Can you breathe fire? Sophie asked immediately. Sophie, Lily hissed. That's rude. It's okay, Marcus said. He looked at Corvin with kind eyes. You don't have to answer any questions you're not comfortable with. Something about the way Marcus said it made Corvin feel less nervous. I can, he admitted quietly. But only a little. I'm still young. That's so cool, Lily said. I wish I could breathe fire. All I can do is whistle. And I'm not even good at it yet. The waiter returned to take their orders. Marcus ordered simple meals for his daughters, nothing too fancy, Sarathix noticed. He was clearly working with a budget. Her own family's meal would cost more than what all three humans would eat tonight. So, Marcus, Sarathix said, trying to make conversation feel natural, what do you do on Harmony Point? I'm a resource coordinator for the human settlements in this sector, Marcus explained. Basically, I help make sure everyone has what they need. Food supplies, medical equipment, educational materials. It's a lot of spreadsheets and supply chain management. He smiled tiredly. Not very exciting. It sounds important, Sarathix said. And she meant it. Dragons often overlooked such work, considering it beneath their notice. But someone had to do it. It keeps me busy, Marcus said. Sometimes too busy. Do you have help? Sarathix asked. Extended family? Support systems? Marcus's expression shifted slightly, and Sarathix immediately regretted the question. She had touched on something painful. It's just us three, Marcus said quietly. My wife, Yuki, passed away 2 years ago. Medical shuttle accident on the way to New Terra. I am deeply sorry, Sarathix said, and she was surprised by how much she meant it. Thank you. Marcus glanced at his daughters, who were coloring together on Sophie's drawing pad. Some days are harder than others. But we manage. Corvin, who had been listening silently, suddenly spoke up. How do you handle the shame of needing help, of not being able to do everything yourself? Sarathix's breath caught. It was a very dragon question, blunt and focused on honor. She worried it might offend, but Marcus did not look offended. He thought about it seriously, as if Corvin had asked something important. I don't feel shame about needing help, Marcus said slowly. I feel grateful when I receive it. And I try to help others when I can. He looked at Corvin directly. We're all just doing our best. You know, nobody can do everything alone. That's why we have communities. Friends, people who care about each other. Corvin frowned slightly, processing this. In dragon culture, asking for help was admitting weakness. Weakness brought shame to your family name. But Marcus spoke about help like it was normal. What about you, Corvin? Marcus asked. What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? Corvin froze. No one ever asked him about hobbies. They asked about his studies, his scores, his progress toward becoming a diplomat like his mother and his grandfather, and the 15 generations before them. Corvin hesitated. He glanced at his mother. Sarathix nodded encouragingly. Go ahead. I like to create holographic art, Corvin said quietly, as if confessing something shameful. Digital sculptures and light patterns. Marcus's entire face lit up. No way! That's amazing! Sophie loves art too. She draws all the time. Sophie looked up from her drawing pad. I draw every day. Daddy says I'm going to be famous one day. I said you could be anything you want to be, Marcus corrected gently. If you work hard and follow your passion. Can you show me your art? Sophie asked Corvin, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Corvin looked uncertain. He had never shown his work to anyone except his art tutor, and that was done in secret. Dragon children were supposed to study diplomacy, military strategy, or science. Art was considered a frivolous pursuit. I have some pieces on my portable projector, Corvin said hesitantly. The restaurant has a holographic entertainment corner, Lily offered, for kids who get bored during long dinners. You could use that? Marcus nodded toward the corner of the restaurant where a small holoprojector stood. Go ahead, if you want to. No pressure, though. Corvin looked at his mother again. Serathix felt a strange tightness in her chest. Her son wanted permission. Permission to simply share something he loved. Go, she said softly. Corvin stood carefully, and Sophie immediately grabbed his clawed hand with her tiny human one. She did not seem afraid at all. Lily followed them to the entertainment corner, and soon all three were clustered around the holoprojector. Serathix watched as Corvin pulled up one of his pieces, a flowing sculpture of light that shifted colors and patterns, like a frozen moment of fire dancing. Sophie gasped with delight. Lily asked questions about how he made it, and Corvin, for the first time since Serathix could remember, looked relaxed. He doesn't smile much, does he? Marcus asked quietly. Serathix turned back to find Marcus watching the children with gentle eyes. No, she admitted. He carries a great deal of pressure. 17 generations of my family have served on the Dragon Council. Corvin is expected to do the same. That's a heavy burden for a kid, Marcus said. It is our way. Excellence is expected. Honor must be maintained. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand tradition. But I also believe kids need space to figure out who they are, not just who they're expected to be. He looked at her. Can I ask, is being on the council what Corvin wants? No one had ever asked that question. Not once in Corvin's entire life. I do not know, Serathix said, and the admission felt like stepping off a cliff. They sat in silence for a moment, watching their children. Sophie was now trying to manipulate the holoprojector herself, with Corvin patiently guiding her small hands. Lily was sketching something on the drawing pad, probably trying to capture the light sculpture. Your daughters are very free, Serathix said carefully. They express themselves openly, sometimes too openly, Marcus said with a soft laugh. But yes, I try to create space for them to be themselves, to feel their feelings, make mistakes, learn from them. He paused. Yuki and I decided early on that we wanted to raise them to be good people. Not perfect people. There's a difference. Good people. Not perfect people, Serathix repeated. The words felt revolutionary. Marcus glanced at her. I hope I'm not overstepping, but Corvin seems like a really good kid. Thoughtful, creative, polite. You should be proud. I am proud, Serathix said automatically. Then she stopped. Was she proud, or was she constantly measuring him against impossible standards, always finding the gaps between who he was and who he was supposed to be? The children returned to the table, all three chattering about art and colors and techniques. Sophie climbed into her chair and accidentally knocked her napkin onto the floor. She froze, looking worried, but Marcus just picked it up and handed it back to her. All good, kiddo. The meal continued with easy conversation. Lily told them about her school, where she was learning about different alien species. Sophie showed them her drawings, enthusiastic scribbles of creatures and spaceships. Corvin, slowly relaxing, even told them about his classes. As the dinner came to an end, Marcus pulled out his datapad. This might be unusual, but would you want to exchange contact information? Maybe the kids could meet up again sometime? I think they'd enjoy it. Serathix felt her breath catch. What Marcus was suggesting was not just unusual, it was scandalous by dragon standards. Dragons did not form casual friendships with other species, especially not humans who were considered so far below their social station. But she looked at Corvin, who was watching her with hopeful eyes. I think, Serathix said slowly, that would be acceptable. They exchanged information. And as they stood to leave, Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. She whispered something, though her whisper carried to everyone at the table. "Dad, can Corvin be our friend?" Marcus looked at Serathix with a question in his eyes. Serathix felt something warm spreading through her chest, something she had not felt in many years. Hope, perhaps. Or possibility. "Yes," she said, and meant it. "I believe he can," asked Endway. As they walked out of the restaurant, Corvin walked beside his mother instead of behind her. His wings were slightly unfurled. Relaxed. "Thank you, Mother," he said quietly. "For what?" "For letting me be myself. Even just for tonight." Serathix's heart broke a little. Even just for tonight. As if being himself was a rare gift, not a daily right. She made a decision then. Things were going to change. 3 weeks passed since that first dinner, and Serathix found herself doing something she had never imagined, spending her free time with a human family. It started small. A message from Marcus asking if Corvin would like to visit the station's botanical gardens with them. Serathix agreed, thinking it would be a single outing. But at the gardens, something magical happened. Sophie dragged Corvin to see the Zentari fire flowers, and the young dragon carefully used his breath to make them bloom. The little girl's squeals of delight echoed through the greenhouse. After that, the invitations kept coming. A trip to the History Museum. A picnic in the observation deck park. An afternoon at Marcus's apartment, where the children built elaborate block towers, and each time, Serathix watched her son transform a little more. At the museum, when Lily asked Corvin about dragon history, he did not recite facts like a proper student. Instead, he told stories, using his hands to gesture. His eyes bright with excitement, he made history come alive, and both girls listened with complete attention. "You're a really good storyteller," Lily said afterward. Corvin looked surprised, as if no one had ever told him that before. "Really? Really," Sophie confirmed, nodding seriously. The dragon community, of course, noticed. Serathix began hearing whispers at council meetings. Saw the disapproving looks from other dragon families. Her assistant, an elderly dragon named Thorniax, finally spoke up. "Counselor Serathix, forgive my directness, but there is talk. You are spending considerable time with humans. Some say you are lowering yourself, that you are setting a poor example for young Corvin." Serathix had looked at him calmly. "And what do you say, Thorniax?" The old dragon hesitated. "I say, I have not seen Corvin smile this much in years. But I am concerned about your reputation." "My reputation," Serathix said slowly, "will survive. My son's happiness is more important." It was the first time she had put Corvin's emotional well-being above their family's standing. It felt both terrifying and absolutely right. One evening, Marcus invited them to his apartment for dinner. The space was small, tiny by dragon standards, but warm. Drawings covered the refrigerator unit. Toys were scattered across the floor. It looked lived in, loved in. Lily was practicing a speech for her school presentation. She kept stumbling over the words, getting frustrated. Serathix watched as Marcus knelt beside her. "Okay, let's try something different. Instead of reading it, tell me about your topic like you're telling a story to Sophie. Just talk to me," Lily tried. And the words flowed naturally. Marcus smiled. "See? You know this stuff. You just got in your own head. Now write it the way you just said it." Later, Corvin pulled Serathix aside into the small kitchen area. "Mother, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why don't we talk like that? Like Marcus talks to his daughters?" Serathix felt her throat tighten. "What do you mean?" "He asks them what they think, what they feel, what they want." Corvin's voice was quiet. "You tell me what I should think, what I should be, what is expected." The words hit like physical blows. But they were true. Serathix struggled to find words. "I was raised the same way. It is how dragons teach strength." "But is it strength?" Corvin asked. "Or is it just fear? Fear of being ourselves?" Before Serathix could answer, Sophie ran in. "Corvin, Come see. I made a drawing of you. Corvin left, and Serathix stood alone in the small kitchen, her son's question echoing in her mind. Marcus found her there a few minutes later. You okay? Corvin asked me a difficult question, she admitted. Kids are good at that, Marcus said with a gentle smile. He poured 2 cups of tea, a human ritual she had grown to appreciate. Want to talk about it? And surprisingly, she did. Serathix told him about dragon culture, about the weight of 17 generations of expectations, about how she was raised to value honor above happiness, duty above desire. I always thought I was preparing him for success, she said. Now I wonder if I was just teaching him to be afraid of failure. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? When Yuki died, I was terrified. Terrified I'd mess up the girls, that I wasn't enough, that I'd fail them. He looked toward the living room where the children were playing, but a friend told me something important. She said, kids don't need perfect parents. They need present parents. Parents who show up, who listen, who admit when they're wrong. And if I have been wrong for years, Serathix asked quietly, then you start being right from today, Marcus said simply. That night, after they returned home, Serathix did something she had never done before. She went to Corvin's room and sat on the edge of his sleeping platform. Corvin, I want to talk to you. Really talk? He looked up from his holographic art project, surprised. Tell me what frightens you, she said, using the words she had learned from Marcus. Corvin was silent for a long moment. Then, like a dam breaking, the words came. I'm terrified of the council aptitude test next month. I'm terrified I'll fail and shame our family. I'm terrified that even if I pass, I'll spend my whole life doing something I don't love. His voice cracked. I don't want to be a diplomat, Mother. I want to create art. I want to make beautiful things that make people feel something, but that's not the dragon way, and I'm terrified to disappoint you. Serathix felt tears, actual tears forming in her eyes. Dragons rarely cried, but she could not stop them. Then we change the way, she said firmly. If the dragon way does not allow my son to be happy, to be himself, then the way is wrong. But Mother, your position, the family honor. You are my family, Serathix said, pulling him close. Your happiness is my honor. They held each other for a long time, and Serathix felt something shift in the universe. She was choosing her son over tradition. It was the most terrifying and liberating thing she had ever done. But the universe, it seemed, was not ready to let her make that choice so easily. 2 days later, Serathix was called before a special session of the Dragon Concordate's education ministry. She stood in the formal chamber, surrounded by 7 elder dragons, all watching her with stern expressions. Counselor Serathix, the head elder, Varnathos began. We have received multiple reports of your unusual associations. I have befriended a human family, Serathix said calmly. I see nothing unusual about friendship. You allow your son to spend time with human children, to engage in undignified play, to pursue frivolous artistic interests, another elder said. This is not appropriate for a dragon of your son's lineage. My son is thriving, Serathix countered. He is happier, more confident, more engaged with life than he has ever been. He is being corrupted, Varnathos said flatly. Human emotional weakness is influencing him. If this continues, he will never pass his aptitude test. He will bring shame to the Ember clan. Fording. Serathix felt anger rising in her chest, hot and fierce. Perhaps our aptitude tests measure the wrong things. Perhaps we should measure kindness, creativity, and emotional intelligence, instead of just memorizing diplomatic protocols. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Dragons did not question the testing system. It had existed for centuries. Varnathos raised a clawed hand for silence. Counselor Serathix, you are allowing personal sentiments to cloud your judgment. We are giving you a formal directive. Discontinue your association with this human family. Focus on preparing your son properly. If you do not comply within 1 week, We will be forced to review your position on the council. Serathix's breath caught. They were threatening her career, her status, everything she had worked for her entire life. And if I refuse? She asked. Then you will face consequences. Your choice, counselor. Serathix walked out of the chamber in a daze. She had 1 week to decide. Her position and reputation, or her son's happiness, and her new understanding of what truly mattered. When she returned home, Corvin was waiting. He had heard about the meeting from the household staff. Mother, I'm so sorry, he said, tears in his eyes. This is my fault. I'll stop seeing them. I'll study harder. No, Serathix said firmly. She knelt down to his level, just as she had seen Marcus do with his daughters. You will do no such thing. How? But your position is less important than you, she said. I have made my choice, Corvin. I choose you. I choose your happiness. I choose the truth I have learned from a wise human father, that love matters more than honor. The next day, Serathix sent a message to the education ministry. It contained only 3 words. I choose him. And then she went to see Marcus, because she needed advice from someone who understood what it meant to choose family above everything else. The real battle was just beginning. Dear Marcus, Lily, and Sophie, I am sorry, but we cannot see each other anymore. My mother might lose everything because of me. Because I have been spending time with you. The council says humans are making me weak. They say I am bringing shame to my family. I do not want to stop being your friend, but I have to. I am sorry. Please do not be angry with me. Corvin. Marcus read it 3 times, his heart sinking with each word. He could feel the pain behind every sentence, the weight of guilt that Corvin was carrying. He wanted to respond immediately, to tell Corvin that everything would be okay. But he stopped himself. This was bigger than simple reassurance. This was about an entire system crushing a child's spirit. The next morning, Marcus sat his daughters down at the breakfast table. Sophie was still in her pajamas, and Lily was braiding her hair. Girls, I need to talk to you about something serious, Marcus began. Both girls looked up, sensing the gravity in his voice. Corvin sent me a message. He says he cannot be our friend anymore because it is causing problems for his family. Sophie's face crumpled immediately. But why? We did not do anything wrong. You are right, we did not. But sometimes people face hard choices, and the best thing we can do for someone we care about is respect their decisions. Even when it hurts? Lily asked quietly, her eyes already filling with tears. Especially when it hurts, Marcus said, though saying the words felt like swallowing glass. They sat in silence for a moment. Sophie climbed into Marcus's lap, something she did when she needed comfort. Lily stared at her cereal, not eating. Then Sophie looked up at her father with those wide, questioning eyes that always seemed to see straight through to the truth. But Daddy, you always say that friends help each other. You said when someone is in trouble, you do not just leave them alone. You help. She frowned. Corvin is our friend. Is he not in trouble? Should we not help? Marcus felt something click into place. His 5-year-old daughter had just cut through all his careful adult reasoning and found the simple truth. She was absolutely right. Yes, Marcus said slowly. Yes, we should help. But how? Lily asked. We are just humans. They are dragons. They have all the power. Marcus thought about this. Then he remembered something from his work. The Interspecies Cultural Exchange Act. It was a treaty signed by all major species on Harmony Point, including the Dragon Concordat. The treaty stated that no species could be discriminated against for forming peaceful friendships across species lines. I think, Marcus said carefully, I need to file a formal petition with the Dragon Council. Lily's eyes widened. Can you do that? Anyone can file a petition. Whether they will listen is another question. Marcus pulled up the regulations on his datapad. But they will have to at least hear me out. It is the law. Over the next 2 days, Marcus drafted his petition. He worked late into the nights, researching dragon history, reading about their founding principles, building his case. Lily helped him with research, reading through documents with surprising focus for an 8-year-old. Even Sophie contributed, drawing pictures to illustrate their friendship evidence of its value. When he submitted the petition, Marcus half expected it to be rejected immediately. But 3 days later, he received a formal response. The Dragon Council had agreed to grant him an audience. The news spread quickly. Serathix contacted him immediately, her voice tight with worry. "Marcus, what have you done?" "What I needed to do," Marcus said calmly. "You do not understand how dragon society works. This could damage your career, your reputation. Other species might treat you differently. Your daughters could face stigma." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But Corvin needs someone to stand up for him, to fight for his right to be himself. If you cannot do it without losing everything, then let me try." Far. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Serathix's voice came back, thick with emotion. "You would risk all of this?" "For my son?" "For my friend," Marcus corrected. "And for what is right." The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Marcus took the day off work. He put on his best formal uniform, the one he wore for official station ceremonies. He made sure Lily and Sophie were dressed neatly too. "Why are we coming?" Lily asked as they walked toward the council chamber. "Because this is about family," Marcus said. "About all of us." The council chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate dragons comfortably, which made humans look even smaller by comparison. 7 massive dragons sat on raised platforms, looking down at a small speaking area in the center. Marcus walked in with a daughter holding each hand. He could feel them trembling. Or maybe he was the one trembling. Serathix and Corvin were already there, seated to one side. Corvin looked miserable, his wings drooping. When he saw Marcus and the girls, his eyes lit up for just a moment before fear clouded them again. The head elder, Varnathos, spoke first. His voice was deep and resonant, filling the entire chamber. "Humyn Marcus Chen, you have petitioned this council for an audience regarding the matter of interspecies association. You have been granted 15 minutes. Speak." Marcus walked to the center of the chamber. He looked up at the 7 enormous dragons staring down at him. He felt very small and very human. But he also felt very determined. "Honorable council members," Marcus began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I am not a diplomat. I am not a politician. I am just a father." He paused. "But I have learned something from your culture that I want to share with you, something I think you might have forgotten." One of the elders leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. Marcus continued, "I have been studying your history, the founding of the Dragon Concordat, specifically. The ancient dragons who formed your government wrote about strength through wisdom, wisdom through diverse perspectives. They believed that true power came from learning from others, not just from your own kind." He pulled up a holographic display, showing ancient dragon texts. Lily had helped him find these in the station's historical archives. "Your ancestors understood that growth comes from opening yourself to different ways of thinking, different ways of being. They knew that isolation makes you brittle, but connection makes you strong." Varnathos frowned. "What is your point, Humyn?" "My point is that your son's friendship with my daughters is not weakness. It is exactly the kind of diverse perspective your founders valued. Corvin has not become weaker since knowing us. He has become braver, more creative, more confident. Is that not what you want for your young people?" Another elder spoke up. "The boy is pursuing frivolous interests. Art has no place in diplomatic training." "Why not?" Marcus challenged. "Art teaches creativity, problem-solving, emotional expression, cultural understanding, all things a great diplomat needs. You are measuring him by one narrow standard and calling everything else failure." He gestured to Corvin. "That young dragon is kind, thoughtful, talented, and brave. He is becoming an extraordinary individual. But you cannot see it because you are too busy demanding he become a copy of his ancestors." The chamber was silent. Marcus took a breath, My daughters taught me something important. They taught me that friendship does not see species or status or power. They see Corvin as a person worth knowing, and Corvin has taught them about courage, about heritage, about beauty. His voice grew stronger. If we teach our children to fear connection, to stay only with their own kind, to measure worth by ancient standards, we are not preparing them for the future. We are trapping them in the past. Varnathos was about to respond when something unexpected happened. Sophie let go of Marcus's hand and walked forward. Her tiny footsteps echoed in the massive chamber. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. This was not part of the plan. She walked right up to the most intimidating council member, the ancient dragon Vermithrax, who had not spoken yet. His scales were almost black with age, his eyes sharp and stern. Sophie reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She had drawn it that morning while Marcus was getting ready. "Mr. Dragon, sir," Sophie said in her small, clear voice. "This is for you." She held up the drawing. It showed a large dragon and two small human children, holding hands under a bright rainbow. Stars surrounded them, and at the bottom, in Sophie's careful handwriting, were the words, "Friends forever." "Corvin is our friend," Sophie said simply. "And friends do not give up on each other." "That is what my daddy taught me." The entire chamber held its breath. Vermithrax slowly reached down with one massive claw and took the drawing, examining it carefully. The silence stretched so long that Marcus thought his heart might burst from the tension. Then, impossibly, the ancient dragon's stern expression softened. His eyes grew distant, as if remembering something from long ago. From the mouths of hatchlings, he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder, "Sometimes comes the greatest wisdom." He looked at his fellow council members. "We have forgotten something important. We have forgotten what it means to simply be friends." The council chamber remained silent after Vermithrax spoke. The other elders exchanged glances, uncertain how to respond. Dragons did not make quick decisions. They valued deliberation, tradition, careful consideration of every angle. Varnathos cleared his throat. "The child's sentiment is touching. But sentiment alone cannot change centuries of protocol. Perhaps that is precisely our problem," Vermithrax said, still holding Sophie's drawing carefully. "We have become so focused on protocol that we have forgotten wisdom." Another elder, a female dragon named Thessalax, spoke up. "What the human says has merit. Our founders did value diverse perspectives. But how do we know this association is truly beneficial and not simply entertaining?" Marcus stepped forward again. "May I offer proof?" Varnathos nodded stiffly. "Corvin," Marcus called gently. "Would you come here, please?" The young dragon hesitated, looking at his mother. Serathix nodded encouragingly. Corvin slowly walked to stand beside Marcus, his head down, wings folded tight. "Tell them," Marcus said quietly. "Tell them what you have learned from our friendship, not what you think they want to hear the truth." Corvin looked up at the 7 massive dragons judging him. Every instinct told him to recite proper responses, to show respect through formal speech, to hide his real feelings. But then he looked at Sophie, who was smiling at him with complete trust. At Lily, who had helped him practice his art presentation. At Marcus, who had never once made him feel ashamed for being himself. "I have learned," Corvin began, his voice shaking, "that being strong does not mean never being afraid. Marcus is afraid, sometimes afraid, he is not good enough for his daughters. Afraid of making mistakes, but he keeps trying anyway. That is real courage." He took a breath, gaining confidence. "I have learned that asking for help is not weakness. It is wisdom. That making mistakes is how you learn, not something to be ashamed of. That being different from your ancestors does not mean dishonoring them." His voice grew stronger. "And I have learned that I want to create art. Beautiful things that make people feel something. Maybe that is not the dragon way. Maybe I am the first in 17 generations to choose a different path, but it is my path, and I want to walk it." The chamber was utterly silent. Serathix felt tears streaming down her face, not caring who saw them. Varnathos leaned back, considering. The boy speaks well. But this still represents a significant departure from tradition. Then perhaps, Vermithrax said slowly, we need a new tradition. Or rather, we need to return to the old wisdom our founders possessed. And we have lost. He looked at the drawing again. I had a friend once. A Zentari named Kilix. We met when I was young. Barely older than Corvin, we were very different dragon and Zentari, fire and water, tradition and innovation. My family disapproved. They said it was beneath my station. His ancient eyes grew sad. I listened to them. I ended the friendship to preserve my family's honor. And I have regretted it for 300 years. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. Vermithrax rarely spoke of personal matters. Do not let this young one make the same mistake I did, Vermithrax said firmly. Do not let protocol steal his chance at genuine connection. Thessalac spoke next. But we cannot simply overturn our guidelines without structure. There must be something official. 1. Marcus saw the opening. Then create something official. A pilot program. An interspecies family cultural exchange. Monitor it, study it. See if it produces positive results. Let our families be the first participants. If it fails, you can end it. But if it succeeds... He paused. You could change the future for every young person on this station. The elders conferred quietly among themselves in the dragon language. Marcus could not understand the words, but he watched their body language carefully. Some seemed resistant. Others appeared thoughtful. Vermithrax was clearly advocating strongly for the idea. Finally, Varnathos spoke. We have reached a decision. We will not overturn our previous directive that would set a precedent of weakness in council authority. Marcus's heart sank. He had failed. However, Varnathos continued, we will establish a trial program as the Humyn suggests. The Interspecies Family Cultural Exchange Initiative. It will run for 1 standard year. Councillor Serathix and the Chen family will be the founding participants. After 1 year, we will evaluate results and determine if the program should expand or conclude. It was not a complete victory. But it was something. It was a chance. We accept, Serathix said immediately, standing. With gratitude. Thank you, Marcus added, relief flooding through him. Do not thank us yet, Varnathos said. You will be watched closely. Any indication that this arrangement is harmful to the young dragon. And it will end immediately. Is that understood? Understood, both Serathix and Marcus said together. Sophie ran to Corvin and hugged his leg, the highest part of him she could reach. We did it. We are still friends. Even stern Varnathos seemed unable to suppress a small smile at that. 6 months passed like a dream. The Interspecies Family Cultural Exchange Initiative grew beyond anyone's expectations. After seeing Corvin's transformation, other families began applying to join. Soon there were 12 dragon families and 15 families from various species. Humans, Zentari, Kithrak, even a few Pixith. All participating, the station's social atmosphere began to change. Children of different species played together in the parks. Parents exchanged parenting advice across cultural lines. The barriers that had seemed so solid started to crack. Corvin enrolled in the Harmony Point Academy of Creative Arts, the first dragon to attend in 3 generations. His holographic installation piece, titled Perspectives, was selected for the station's annual youth exhibition. The piece wove together stories from his dragon heritage and his human friends, creating a narrative about connection across difference. On the night of the exhibition opening, the gallery was packed. Dragons stood beside humans, Zentari beside Kithrak, all admiring the artwork created by a young dragon who had found the courage to be himself. Marcus stood with his daughters, watching Corvin explain his piece to a group of interested viewers. The young dragon's confidence was remarkable, so different from the anxious, quiet child Marcus had first met. He looks happy, Lily observed. He is, Sarathix said, coming to stand beside them. She had changed too over these months. Her rigid formality had softened into something warmer, more genuine. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to you, Marcus corrected. You made the hardest choice, risking everything for his happiness. We both made that choice, Sarathix said, and I believe we chose correctly. Sophie tugged on Sarathix's tail gently. Something the dragon now permitted, even enjoyed. Miss Sarathix, tell the story again. Which story, little one? About the dragon who had dinner and made friends. Sarathix and Marcus exchanged warm glances. Other families had gathered around now, wanting to hear the story too. It had become something of a legend on the station, how a simple dinner had changed everything. Very well, Sarathix said, her formal tone softening into something more intimate. Once upon a time, a dragon mother took her son to dinner at a fancy restaurant. She was worried about him, though she did not yet know why. And then she saw something that changed her understanding of everything. What did she see? A small Zentari child asked. Even though everyone knew the story, she saw a human father caring for his daughters with such patience, such gentleness, such love. And she realized that strength comes in many forms. That wisdom can be found in unexpected places. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you have something to learn. Marcus picked up the story. So the dragon did something unthinkable. She crossed the restaurant and spoke to the Humyn family. And in that moment of courage, she began a friendship that would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone on this station. Because friends help each other, Sophie added seriously. Because friends help each other, Sarathix agreed. She looked around at all the families gathered, dragons, humans, Zentari, Kithrak, all together. And because when we open ourselves to connection, when we choose compassion over convention, we create something beautiful. Corvin finished with his viewers and came over, his face glowing with pride and happiness. Mother, did you see? They loved it. I saw, my dear one. I am so very proud of you. Not just for the art, Corvin said. For everything. For being brave enough to change. Sarathix pulled him close. We changed together. The exhibition continued late into the evening. Children played while adults talked, shared meals, exchanged stories. The boundaries between species seemed less important here, in this space of shared joy and celebration. As the crowds began to thin, Marcus found himself standing with Sarathix on the gallery's observation deck, looking out at the stars beyond the station. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not approached our table that night? Marcus asked. Every day, Sarathix admitted. I wonder where Corvin would be. Where I would be. Probably still trapped in our rigid expectations. Both of us unhappy but too afraid to admit it. And now we are free, Sarathix said simply. Free to be ourselves, to grow, to change. You gave me that gift, Marcus Chen. You and your remarkable daughters. You gave us a gift too, Marcus said. You showed us that courage looks different than we thought. That sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is be vulnerable. Be open. Be willing to change. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Behind them, they could hear their children laughing together, dragon and human. Different but connected, bound by something deeper than species or tradition. What are you thinking? Sarathix asked. Marcus smiled. I am thinking that Yuki would have loved this. She always believed that kindness could change the world. That reaching out, even when it is scary, is always worth it. She sounds like she was very wise. She was, Marcus said softly. And she would have liked you very much. Sophie's voice called out. Daddy, Miss Sarathix, come see. Corvin is showing us how to make light sculptures. They turned from the stars and walked back to their children, to their friends, to this new family they had built together across all the boundaries that were supposed to keep them apart. The dragon had taken her son to dinner and done the unthinkable. She had chosen connection over convention, and in doing so, she had helped create a future where others could make the same choice, where friendship, compassion, and understanding mattered more than tradition or protocol. where love, in all its forms, was finally enough. The end Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.